Her son had just died. But what her own sister did next will shock you beyond belief. This story of betrayal and revenge will keep you hooked till the very end. Don't miss a second. The air in Nguwo village was heavy with grief. Inside a small clay house at the edge of the village, Zeleni sat on the floor, her back against the cracked wall, her eyes fixed on her son's lifeless body. Her son, Tando, only 25, was the pride of her life, humble, kind, and brilliant. He had worked his way from selling recharge cards on the roadside to becoming a tech genius known across town. His future was just beginning. But now, his journey had ended. Just like that. A week before, he had come home late at night, sweating and short of breath. Zeleni gave him herbs and prayed over him. He said it was nothing serious, just stress. He had smiled to calm her. The next morning she found him cold and still. No struggle, no scream, no explanation, just death. Neighbors poured in as soon as the news spread. Women wailed, men sat in silence, and some youth sobbed openly. But Zeleni didn't cry. She couldn't. Her pain was too deep to reach her eyes. She sat still like a stone, unable to believe her son was gone. Her world had shattered. As more villagers came to pay respects, one face was missing. Nadira, Zeleni's only sister, her blood, her supposed best friend. She wasn't there to hold her. Not even a message. Not even a call. That absence burned more than the loss. Tando had always trusted Nadira. She had helped him manage some of his business affairs when he became successful. Zeleni had warned him to be careful, but he had laughed, saying, "Aunt Nadira is family. She wants the best for me." But now Zeleni remembered something else. A strange voice message from Tando 2 weeks ago. He had seemed troubled. His words were short and shaken. "Mama, if anything happens to me, don't trust anyone. Ask Uncle Lube. Promise me." At the time, she dismissed it. Now, it played like a warning. Her grief mixed with confusion. Something wasn't right. Why did her healthy, strong son suddenly die in his sleep? Why hadn't Nadira shown up? Where was she? Zeleni sat through the funeral like a shadow. People tried to comfort her, but she barely heard them. Her heart was no longer in the room. It was chasing questions. Every time someone asked, "Where is your sister?" she had no answer. But in her silence, her suspicion grew. After the burial, as the mourners thinned out, Zeleni sat alone beside her son's grave. A cold breeze brushed past her face. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Tando, if they did something to you, I will find out." Deep in her spirit, a storm was forming, not of tears, but of truth. And she knew this pain would not rest until she uncovered it. Something terrible had happened, and her sister's silence was the loudest clue of all. The day Zeleni buried her only son, laughter floated through the air like poison. Just a street away, people were dancing in bright clothes, their feet stomping the dry ground to the beat of loud drums. The smell of roasted goat and spiced rice filled the sky. Children ran around with balloons, and men clinked their drinks in celebration. It was the grand opening of a new mansion, and the owner was none other than Nadira, Zeleni's younger sister. Zeleni sat in her dark room, staring out the window as the noise grew louder. Her eyes, dry from too much crying, narrowed. She recognized the music, Nadira's favorite band from the city. Her body stiffened. Her sister hadn't shown up for Tando's burial. Not even a knock, not a message, not a single word of condolence. And yet, she had the strength to throw a party. The mansion stood tall, newly painted in cream and gold, standing like a stranger in the modest village. No one knew how Nadira had suddenly built such a palace. She used to live in a one-room mud hut not far from Zeleni's house. Now, her driveway had 3 imported cars parked in it. Her dress shimmered in the sun, and her laughter rang louder than the music. Villagers rushed to her compound in excitement. "Nadira has made it," they cheered. From nothing to a queen. They danced, praised her, and ate like it was a wedding. Some even whispered that she had won a secret jackpot. Others said she had gotten money from a powerful business partner in the city. But Zeleni knew better. This kind of wealth didn't appear overnight. From her window, she watched the guests pour in. Her own compound was empty, the only sound being the soft cry of the wind against Tando's grave. Her heart pounded with anger. How could Nadira celebrate so loudly, knowing her nephew had just died? The timing wasn't just wrong, it felt intentional. Zeleni stood up slowly, her eyes burning. She could still hear the last thing Tando had told her. "Don't trust anyone, Mama, especially not those close." The words haunted her now. She couldn't ignore the connection anymore. Nadira had access to Tando's business accounts. Nadira had been acting distant for months, and now, as her son lay in the ground, Nadira threw the biggest party the village had seen in years. As the drums banged louder, Zeleni clenched her fists. It wasn't just the noise that hurt, it was the betrayal. Her own blood was celebrating, not mourning. She could hear Nadira laughing, carefree and glowing, while she sat with nothing but silence and pain. That moment, Zeleni made a silent vow. There was more to this than grief, and she wouldn't rest until she found out how her sister got rich and what it had to do with her son's sudden death. Something dark was hiding behind that mansion's walls, and she was ready to tear them down. Days crept by like shadows, but Zeleni found no peace. Her son was gone, yet her tears had dried, not from healing, but from questions that refused to let her sleep. Each morning, she woke up with Tando's voice in her ears, that message replaying in her mind. "Mama, I don't trust Aunt Nadira anymore. If anything happens to me, ask Uncle Lube." At first, she thought grief was twisting her thoughts, but the signs were now impossible to ignore. How had Nadira gone from struggling to buy cooking oil to suddenly living like a queen? Just 6 months ago, she was sewing clothes under a tree, charging barely enough to survive. Now, she had 3 cars with tinted windows, golden chairs in her living room, and even city celebrities attending her housewarming party. Where did it all come from? Zeleni walked around the village and listened quietly. Some said Nadira had a rich lover. Others believed she had joined a powerful group in the city. A few even joked that maybe she sold a piece of her soul. But when Zeleni heard a woman whisper, "They say it happened after her nephew died," her blood turned cold. She rushed home, locked the door, and sat alone with her thoughts. That voice message Tando left. He sounded scared. Why hadn't she taken it seriously before? She opened his old phone again and played it on repeat. "Mama, if anything happens to me, ask Uncle Lube." Uncle Lube. That name echoed like thunder. He wasn't a man many knew well. He lived deep at the edge of Nguwo, barely seen in public. People said he once saved Tando from drowning when he was just a boy. Since then, he became like a second father to him. He never visited much, but Tando always said, "Uncle Lube sees everything." Zeleni hadn't spoken to Lube in years, but now she had to. She wrapped her scarf around her head and walked through the bush path toward his isolated house. Her heart pounded with every step. She didn't know what answers waited there, but she felt it in her bones. Nadira's new smile was hiding something dangerous. As she neared Lube's gate, she paused. The place looked abandoned, but she knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Then the wooden door creaked open slightly. A tired old voice called from inside. "Zeleni, I've been expecting you." Her breath caught. "You know why I'm here?" she asked. Lube nodded slowly, stepping into the light. His eyes, tired but sharp, locked onto hers. "Yes, it's about Tando and what your sister did." Zeleni's knees weakened, but she didn't fall. Her grief had turned into fire now. The truth was closer. Nadira's fortune wasn't luck. It was bought with something, or someone. Zeleni took a deep breath. Whatever Lube knew, she was ready to hear it, because deep down, she already knew. Nadira's new life came at a deadly price. Zeleni sat quietly in Uncle Lube's dimly lit cottage, her hands shaking as he slid a sealed envelope across the table. The front was marked in bold letters, "In case I die." Her heart dropped. The handwriting was Tando's. She opened it with trembling fingers. The paper smelled faintly of his cologne. Her eyes scanned the page, and the more she read, the heavier her breath became. Tando had poured his heart into the letter. He explained everything with painful honesty. Months before his death, he had secretly developed a mobile app, a learning tool that had gone viral among students in Nigeria. A tech investor from Lagos contacted him and offered to buy the app for 80 million naira. Tando, just 22 and still in university, was overwhelmed. He didn't know how to handle such a large deal on his own. In the letter, he wrote that he didn't want to stress his mother, so he turned to someone he thought he could trust, his Aunt Nadira. He asked her to help him manage the funds until he graduated. She agreed. She even hugged him and promised to protect the money like her own. But the truth was far from that promise. 2 weeks after the deal was finalized, Tando started noticing strange things. His access to the account was suddenly blocked. Nadira stopped picking his calls. She told him the investor backed out, but he found out the payment had already gone through. All 80 million had landed in an account, Nadira's account. Tando confronted her once quietly. She laughed, said he was just a boy playing with big people's money. "Who do you think they believed did the paperwork? You or me?" she said, according to the letter. Heartbroken, Tando didn't tell anyone. He didn't want to shame his family, but he started preparing to go public, with documents, messages, proof of ownership. He even told Uncle Lube about his plans. But just 3 days before his scheduled announcement, he fell ill. The letter ended with words Zeleny would never forget. "Mama, if you're reading this, I didn't die by mistake. Aunt Nadira took everything. Please don't let my life disappear without truth." Tears rolled down Zeleny's face. Her heart felt torn open all over again. But now the pain had a name: betrayal. Her son wasn't just gone. He had been robbed, silenced, and buried, while the one who stole his life danced in the mansion he built. Uncle Lube spoke softly. "He gave me the letter the night he started vomiting. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I needed to be sure it was safe." Zeleny folded the letter gently and placed it near her chest. Her mourning had ended. A new fire was lit inside her. Tando's truth would not be buried. Nadira thought she had won, but the dead had spoken, and the living was listening. Zeleny walked back into Nguwo with a different silence, not the silence of grief, but of focus. Her steps were steady, her face calm, but inside her heart thundered. The truth had cut deeper than the pain of losing her son. Nadira hadn't just stolen money, she had stolen Tando's dream, his future, and stood dancing while Zeleny buried her only child. Back in her small house, Zeleny sat alone, remembering something Tando had once whispered while hugging her. "If anything ever happens, just use the passcode. Tando 2024. She never understood it then, but now her hands moved quickly to his old tablet. She entered the passcode. The screen lit up, and her breath caught. The cloud folder opened. Dozens of files popped up. One was named Confirmation. Another said PROOF. Zeleny clicked through, and each file was like a blade. There were screenshots of bank transfers. The entire 80 million naira moved into an account under Nadira's name. Another file contained emails between Tando and the Lagos investor, clearly showing Tando as the app's sole creator. The contracts had his full name, signature, and even a scanned copy of his ID. Then came the recordings. One had Nadira's voice saying, "He's just a child. What will he do with that kind of money? It's better off with me." Another recording had her arguing on the phone saying, "If he opens his mouth, I'll handle him before he becomes a problem." It was all there. Her greed, her plan, her betrayal, sealed forever in Tando's digital journal. But the last file was the one that shattered Zeleny's heart. A voice note from Tando, weak but clear. "Mama, if you're hearing this, Nadira killed my trust, but she can't kill the truth. I hope one day someone listens." Zeleny couldn't stop the tears this time, but they weren't just tears of pain. They were tears of purpose. Tando had trusted her with the truth. Now it was her duty to make sure the world heard it. She replayed the files again and again, burning every detail into her mind. She backed them up, made copies, and even stored them on a flash drive hidden in her cupboard. Nadira's wealth wasn't luck. It was built on a stolen future. Every marble tile in that mansion was paid for by the blood of her son. Zeleny didn't knock on Nadira's gate. She didn't shout in the streets. She waited, observed, and she made a plan, one that would shake Nguwo to its roots. Because greed had built that house, but truth would be the hammer to bring it down. Zeleny stepped into the bustling marketplace with quiet strength. The sun beat down on the red earth as traders called out prices and children chased each other between stalls. But she wasn't there to buy. She was there to expose. Clutched in her hand was a small envelope containing printed copies of the bank transfers, recordings, and contracts Tando had saved. She walked straight to Ayo the barber, the man whose mouth moved faster than any drum in Nguwo. She handed him the envelope without a word. Ayo opened it, scanned the documents, and his eyes widened. By the time Zeleny reached the end of the market lane, whispers had already begun. Tando's mother gave Ayo something. "Did you hear Nadira might be a thief? Wait, Tando's money built that mansion." Within 2 hours, the whispers turned into wildfire. At the tailoring shop, women dropped their fabrics to listen. At the cassava stall, men leaned in, shaking their heads in disbelief. 80 million naira? She took it from her own nephew, and she was dancing while his mother cried? The story spread so fast that it reached the ears of the village chief before the sun began to set. Guards were immediately sent to Nadira's compound, not to arrest her, but to investigate. The chief wasn't a man to act on rumors, but the documents they found inside the envelope, they spoke louder than any villager could. City reporters soon arrived, their cameras and microphones aimed straight at Nadira's giant blue gates. Still dressed in gold silk, she stepped out smiling, acting unbothered. These are lies, she told them. Old jealousy. My sisters always envied my success. Her voice was calm, her posture confident, but there was a twitch in her left eye, a flicker of fear. People gathered outside her mansion. Some remembered how just days ago they had danced on that very lawn, praising her blessings. Now they stood silent, ashamed and angry. She killed his trust, someone whispered. He was only trying to make something of himself, but Nadira still stood tall. I worked for everything I have, she yelled. My money is clean. That was when one of the chief's guards stepped forward with a speaker. Then explain this, he said, pressing play. Tando's voice echoed through the air. Mama, if you're hearing this, Nadira killed my trust, but she can't kill the truth. Gasps filled the air, then silence. Even Nadira's fake smile couldn't hide the panic that now spread across her face. People didn't just hear a boy's final words. They felt them, felt the pain, the betrayal, the truth. By evening, Nadira's gates were closed tight, but the damage had been done. The whole of Nguwo knew now. Her wealth wasn't a miracle, it was stolen. Her mansion stood tall, but her name had crumbled. The call came early in the morning. A royal guard knocked on Zeleni's door with a simple message. Chief Akonu wants to see you. Her heart beat fast, but not from fear. It was time. By midday, the village square was full. Men, women, even children left their homes to hear what the chief had to say. Chief Akonu, tall and commanding, stood beneath the great baobab tree in his long blue robe. His voice boomed through the square. This is not a time for rumors. It's a time for truth. Zeleni stepped forward, holding a small speaker in one hand and a folder in the other. Her hands didn't shake. She pressed play. Tando's voice poured through the speaker, steady and filled with emotion. Mama, if you're hearing this, Nadira killed my trust. But she can't kill the truth. The crowd gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others looked at Nadira, who stood beside her flashy SUV, her arms folded tightly. Then came the documents. Copies of the contracts Tando had signed when he sold his app. Transfers showing the exact amounts sent to Nadira's account. Screenshots of bank alerts. And finally, a recorded phone call. Zeleni played it without saying a word. Nadira's voice echoed. He's too young to handle that kind of money. He'll thank me later, or not. Who cares? A heavy silence fell. Then murmurs started. She admitted it, so it's true. She stole it. Nadira's face lost all color. Her lips moved, but no words came. The woman who had once danced like a queen now stood frozen, surrounded by the weight of her lies. Her eyes darted toward the chief, then to the crowd, but no one came to her defense, not even her closest friends. Chief Akonu raised a hand to silence the whispers. We do not judge without proof, but today, proof has spoken louder than any lie. He turned to Nadira. You will return every kobo that belongs to Tando's name. Every kobo. Nadira opened her mouth to protest, but the chief continued. If not, the city court will hear of this, and you will answer to the law. A sharp wind passed through the square, but no one moved. Nadira stood alone, stripped of her pride, her wealth, her house, her clothes. None of it could protect her now. The crowd began to step away from her, one by one, as if her presence was poison. Zeleni said nothing more. She didn't need to. Her son's voice had spoken for her. As the gathering ended, Chief Akonu walked over to Zeleni and placed a hand on her shoulder. You have done your son proud, he said quietly. Justice has begun. And just like that, the truth that had been hidden behind gold curtains and fake smiles was out in the open, unable to be buried again. Just when the village thought everything had been revealed, Zeleni stepped forward once more. Her voice was calm, but firm. There's one last thing, she said. From her bag, she pulled out a sealed envelope with a red stamp and handed it to Chief Akonu. The seal read, City of Lagos, Notarized Documents Division. The chief broke it open, unfolding a neatly written will. Tando's final words, written before his death and legally confirmed in the city. The crowd leaned in, eyes wide, breaths held. Chief Akonu began to read aloud. I, Tando Njoro, being of sound mind and body, leave all my earnings, assets, and intellectual property to my mother, Zeleni Njoro. The crowd gasped softly. He continued, I declare that Nadira Njoro is never to touch or access any funds belonging to me, directly or indirectly. If she does, I ask that she be reported to the National Cybercrime Unit and held accountable by law. A loud murmur swept through the square. People shook their heads, whispering in shock. Some even stepped away from Nadira, as if afraid her shame would stain them too. Nadira's hands trembled, her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted around, looking for a way out, for someone to save her. But the faces around her had turned cold. Chief Okonu's face darkened. He turned to Nadira, holding the will high for all to see. This is not village gossip. This is law, and this law is final. The chief raised his staff and declared, "You, Nadira Njoro, are hereby stripped of your village honor. You are no longer welcomed at our gatherings, our ceremonies, or within the walls of leadership." The people clapped, some in relief, others in support of justice. He pointed to the towering mansion. That house, built with stolen blood money, will be seized by village authority and repurposed for the Youth Technology Center. In Tando's name, cheers erupted. Some people wept. Tando, a boy many had watched grow, would now be remembered with dignity. Then came the final blow. "Nadira," Chief Okonu said, his voice as sharp as a blade, "you are banished from Nguwo for 7 years. You will not set foot in this village. If you do, you will answer to the law and to the ancestors." Nadira fell to her knees, stunned, but no one came to help her, not even the drivers of her 3 shiny cars. One by one, the villagers turned away. Zeleni stood still, silent. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just held the will close to her chest and whispered, "Rest now, my son." And so, under the hot Nuwo sun, a greedy woman fell. A stolen legacy was restored, and a mother stood tall, not with power, but with the unshakable strength of truth. Within just a few days, the walls that had once echoed with Nadira's laughter began to crumble. The bank froze her accounts after the evidence was handed over to the authorities. No money could be touched or moved. Her flashy cars, symbols of her sudden wealth, were taken away and held as part of the investigation. The mansion that Nadira had proudly shown off, the place where music and celebrations had drowned out the pain of her own family, was sealed by the government. It was marked as evidence in the growing case against her. Nguwo village watched quietly as Nadira's world fell apart. The grand celebrations stopped, the drums were silent, and her friends slowly drifted away. She no longer had the power to intimidate or the riches to show off. Meanwhile, Zelani, the grieving mother, wore white, a color of honor in their culture, not the black of mourning. She stood tall and strong, holding on to the legacy of her son, Tando. The remaining funds from his earnings were finally returned to her. Without wasting a moment, she began plans to open a technology school in Tando's name, a place where young people could learn and build their futures, just as her son had dreamed. The community rallied around Zeleni, supporting her vision to turn tragedy into hope. Her pain was deep, but so was her resolve. Instead of being broken by loss, she chose to build something that would inspire generations to come. Nadira, on the other hand, faced a harsh reality. She was no longer the woman who controlled money and status. The same market where she had once strutted proudly in designer shoes now saw her begging for small coins. Her pride was shattered. People who once praised her now avoided her, whispering behind her back about how greed had brought her down. She sat on the dusty ground, the cold eyes of the villagers burning into her. The smile she once wore was gone, replaced by regret and desperation. Some passed by without a glance. Others dropped a small coin or two, more out of pity than respect. From the height of wealth and power to the bottom of humility and shame, Nadira's fall was a lesson for everyone in Nuwo. Greed and betrayal had not only cost her money, but also her dignity and place in the community. Zeleni's strength became a beacon of hope. The mother, who had lost everything except her truth, showed that no darkness could overshadow light forever. The tech school was soon under construction, a symbol of renewal and a tribute to a young man who had fought to make a difference. Nguwo would never forget the story of Tando and his mother, and the downfall of a woman who chose wealth over family. It was a powerful reminder that no fortune gained by betraying loved ones would ever bring true happiness. And so, as the sun set behind the village, a new chapter began, one built on honesty, justice, and the enduring power of a mother's love. Months passed, and life in Nguwo began to change. Zeleni, once weighed down by grief, now carried a quiet strength. Her smile returned, not because the pain had vanished, but because her son's truth had finally won. The injustice done to Tando was exposed for all to see, and the community rallied behind Zelene's vision to honor him. The Tando Tech Academy opened its doors, bringing hope to the village's children. Here, they learned coding and new skills, inspired by Tando's dream to lift their futures beyond the village boundaries. The academy became more than a school. It became a symbol of justice and resilience. Parents brought their children eager for them to learn, while the story of Nadira, the aunt who betrayed her own nephew for money, spread like wildfire. Her name was no longer spoken with admiration, but as a cautionary tale. Mothers warned their children about greed, telling them how Nadira's riches turned to dust because she chose selfishness over family. One quiet evening, a young boy at the academy asked Zelene, "Mama Zelene, do you miss Tando?" Her heart ached at the question, but she smiled through her tears. "Every day," she said softly, "but I see him in every child who rises with truth." Her words carried the weight of a mother's love and the hope that her son's legacy would live on through these young minds. As for Nadira, she vanished from Nguwo. No one saw her leave, but everyone knew she was gone. The mansion that once stood tall in the village was empty, a hollow reminder of her fall from grace. She had lost everything: the money, the honor, and the respect of her people. Her name lingered only in whispers, not as a story of success, but as a warning. The villagers would say, "Greed may build a mansion, but it can never build peace." Nadira's fate was a clear message. No matter how quiet karma walks, it never forgets. She had tried to steal her nephew's future, but in the end, she lost her own. Nguwo now looked toward a brighter future. The pain of the past was still there, but it had transformed into strength and hope. Zelene's courage and her son's truth had taught the village a powerful lesson. In a world where betrayal seemed common, justice found its way. The story of Tando and his mother became a legend, inspiring many to believe in the power of truth and the unstoppable force of karma. And so, in the heart of Nguwo, where tragedy once ruled, a new story blossomed, a story of love, justice, and the quiet power of a mother's faith. The Tando Tech Academy thrived, nurturing dreams and reminding everyone that no darkness lasts forever, and that those who do wrong will always face the final blow. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that truth and justice always find their way, then please don't keep it to yourself. Every time we share stories like this, we spread hope and courage to those who might be facing their own battles. Remember, no matter how dark things seem, standing up for what is right can change lives, not just yours, but the whole community's. Zelene's strength and Tando's legacy show us that even in the deepest pain, there is a light that never fades. If you believe in the power of truth and the unstoppable force of karma, let this story inspire you to hold on, fight on, and never lose hope. Share this video with your family and friends, because sometimes a story is all someone needs to find their own strength. And if you want to see more powerful stories that touch the soul and teach important life lessons, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button to show your support and help us keep sharing these unforgettable tales. Your support means the world and helps us reach more hearts that need encouragement. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this journey with us. Together, we can remind everyone that kindness, truth, and justice will always win in the end. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, every story has a lesson waiting to change your life.